Let's be honest. Do you skip making quiche recipes because you're not that confident in your crust making capabilities? We're being honest, and that is an area that I have not mastered. And to me, nothing is worse than spending a bunch of time in the kitchen and money on ingredients. When the quiche comes out of the oven, you think it's good, you cut into it, and the bottom is all soggy. Well, all that changed when I caught a 1971 episode of Julia Childs, the French chef. She was making Quiche Lorraine, and she did make homemade crust, but she also used a store-bought frozen pie crust. That was all the permission I needed. If Julia can use frozen pie crust, so can we. So today we're going to make 4 different quiches. I'm going to do a quiche Lorraine, which is the mother of all quiches, according to Queen Julia herself. I'm going to make a broccoli and cheddar, which is one of my favorites. Ham and Swiss, which is pretty traditional and most people like, and then a Mexican-inspired one, because if you know me, I like a little spicy Mexican flavor twist on a lot of my dishes. Welcome back to Nancy's Homestyle Kitchen, where I like to teach you simple recipes with affordable ingredients and no pressure to be perfect. So let's talk about the pie crust. This is a Marie Callender's deep dish pie crust. It comes 2 to a pack. Pillsbury also makes a deep dish that comes 2 to a pack, as well as some store brands. Now, I opted to choose the Marie Callender's one because, and you got to do this when you go to the store, look at the crust. The Pillsbury ones, they were actually all kind of broken. This has a nice plastic cover, and when they come out, I've had really good success with their pie crust kind of holding up. The store-bought ones seem to be broken too, and you don't want a shallow or a regular size pie crust. You definitely want the deep dish because your fillings will overflow on the shallow ones. And really, I mean, that's all what quiche is, right? It's the egg, but it's the fillings that make it a quiche. So to get started, we're gonna par-bake these pie crusts. And by par-bake, I mean partially bake. So I use pie weights. Now I take a very affordable option on pie weights, and I just use dry beans. I actually just keep them in a mason jar and I reuse them over and over. So under $2, I have some pie weights that I can put in any crust that I'm baking. So you want to get a piece of foil that just extends right over your crust, and you want to make sure the beans are really pressing into the bottom and along the sides, because when this par bakes, the pressure from the weight is going to help your crust from falling down the sides of your pan. And then with the foil being extended over the top like this, it's going to help prevent the crust from getting too brown on this par baking process. These crusts, I just took them from the freezer and they've only been sitting out for about 10 minutes. So you can make this pretty quickly. So let me get these ready to go. And then you can use a cookie sheet. I have a sheet that has holes in it. It doesn't matter. I just like this one because I feel like it gets a little more airflow in. So let me put these on here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna bake these in a 450-degree oven for 10 minutes. And then after 10 minutes, I'm just gonna pick up the foil with the beans in it, remove it, and bake it for an additional 8 minutes till the crust doesn't look kind of wet and shiny and it looks like it's almost baked. So I'll get these in the oven and then I'll show you what that process looks like. So it's been 10 minutes and let's go ahead and remove the pie weights. So I'm just gonna pull this out and very carefully. Now the foil to me doesn't really get that hot. So even though it's at 450 degrees, it's not transferring the heat to the foil. So I just like to kind of pick it up by the 4 corners and just move it, set it over on the counter and give it a squish so you don't have beans everywhere. We're gonna cook this for another 8 minutes. And I actually made 2 right here. If you want to see, that's what they're going to look like once they're done with the par-bake process. And you could see here, they're still kind of glistening on the bottoms. I don't know if that's transferring over to the camera. I know my oven's open. Okay, so back in and we'll bake it for another 8 minutes. All right, all 4 crusts are par-baked and this one's cooled off a little bit so I can handle it. And this is the secret to Julia Child's quiche recipe. She called it her all-purpose mixture. And essentially what you're gonna do is you're gonna crack 3 eggs. I have a 2-cup Pyrex measuring cup, and you do need something like this that you can see through that measures at least 1.5 cups because that's what we're aiming for. But you're gonna crack 3 eggs into here. And then you're gonna take 1/2 and 1/2 or whole milk. You could use heavy cream if you want. But the secret is you want to add the cream till you come up to just between 1 1/4 and 1.5 cups. That's the secret recipe. And then from this base or this mixture, then you can add any fillings. So the first one we're going to make is Quiche Lorraine, or as Julia calls it, Quiche Lorraine. And I don't talk like that, so I'm going with Lorraine. So nutmeg is traditional in quiche Lorraine. So you want a pinch of nutmeg and about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. You don't need too much because we have the salt from the bacon. And about 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. So this is 6 thick cut slices of bacon that I just baked in the oven. I think it was 400 degrees or so for about 20 to 30 minutes. And then I blotted them with a paper towel to get any of the extra bacon grease off and just cut them into strips. I like baking it in the oven because then it doesn't make your whole stovetop a mess. And I don't want to have to clean it again. And this is Gruyère cheese. I think the block I got in the deli section by all the fancy cheeses. I think it's like a 4.5 ounce block. So you want to sprinkle that in here. So again, this is just about 1 cup. I'm going to keep a little of the cheese extra because I'll sprinkle that on top. Then just make sure your all-purpose mixture is stirred up really well and all the egg yolks have broken and incorporated. And then you're just gonna pour this all over the fillings. And you could see if we weren't using a deep dish pie crust, this would have already been way too much. So let's put a little bit of the cheese on top. I reduced my oven to 375 degrees, by the way, because we don't want to cook it that hot. Okay, so here's one. We'll bake that. And then we're going to do one more. Let's go for the broccoli cheddar. So again, 3 eggs. Half and half to come up to 1.5 cups. Mix it up really well. Okay, just a little pinch, Nancy. I think I got carried away on the one before. 1/2 teaspoon of salt and some fresh pepper. Give that another mix. Okay, I have one more pie crust. This one's cooled. Okay, this is 2 cups of chopped broccoli that I've already steamed. I'm looking at this thinking it may be a little too much, so we're gonna wing it. It's It's not looking too bad. But by steaming it ahead of time and then chopping it, the broccoli is going to be nice and tender when you go to eat it, instead of having some like really kind of tough pieces of broccoli. I like it to be more tender. So I'm going to go a little shy on the 2 cups just because I think that's enough. And then I'm going to add about 1 cup of cheddar cheese. You can saute a shallot in some butter and add that to this as well if you would like. That would be really good. The thing that's awesome about this mixture is you can kind of choose your own adventure. Just make whatever kind of fillings that you like, as long as you just follow the simple all-purpose mixture, which is this egg and half mixture. You can kind of just make it what you want. Okay, I think that's going to be just about perfect. It is. I'm going to put these both on this sheet, and then we're going to bake it in a 375-degree oven for about 30 to 35 minutes until it's nice and golden on top and it is set. And sometimes I will kind of put a knife in there to see if it comes out dry. You know, I don't want it covered with custard and stuff. And sometimes, honestly, it's kind of hard to tell because when there's cheese in there, you kind of think it may not be done because of what's coming out on the knife, but some of that is just residual from the cheese. Sometimes the edge of the crust can get really, really brown. So they make these things, they call them pie shields. This one's a flexible one, and that way you can adjust it to whatever size pie that you're making. But essentially, if the crust starts browning too much and you don't want it to continue browning, you can set this, open up your oven and just set this around the rim of your pie crust, and it'll keep the rest of the crust from browning while continuing to cook your pie. So we'll wait for those 2 to be done, and then we'll put together the other 2 quiches, which is the ham and Swiss, and the Chile Relleno one, which is the Mexican-inspired one that I was talking about earlier. One more thing I did want to mention is these are really easy to freeze. After they're cooked, you could freeze them whole, and I'll give you a good tip of what you could do with those, and I'll talk to you about the freezing process later. So we'll be back to get the other 2 quiches in the oven. The Quiche Lorraine and the broccoli cheese quiches are both done, and I just pulled them out of the oven. They're sitting back here to cool, so I still have my oven on. Let's start with the Chile Relleno quiche. I have 2 tablespoons of cornmeal. I'm going to sprinkle on the bottom of the crust, and this is going to help give it that Chile Relleno flavor. And then I'm going to sprinkle part of the cheese. Kind of change this up. I was just going to do all Monterey Jack, but I thought, you know, sometimes Jack isn't really packed with a lot of flavor. So I mixed up Monterey Jack and sharp cheddar. So I'm going to put about half the cheese here on the bottom. And then this is a 4-ounce can of diced green chilies. Now with this, I put them in a little fine mesh strainer, and I actually rinsed it because I tried to drain it and I just didn't feel like all the juice was coming off. And I really want these as dry as possible because I don't want added moisture from the green chilies to put a bunch of water into this crust. So I gave it a quick rinse to get that thick juice off of it that comes in the can naturally. And then I let it drain for a little bit, spread it out on a paper towel, and tried to blot it dry. They do sell chilies in whole in the can, and if you could find those, I would probably add those chilies, drain it, slice them up. I think it'd be easier to work with a whole chili to kind of get dry and then chop it up and put it in. And let's go ahead and we'll pour in the same all-purpose mixture that we used for the other 2 quiches. This one I did not put nutmeg in because it's kind of a southwestern feel. I'm going to stop a little shy because I don't want it to overflow. But yeah, nutmeg I don't think goes with chili rellenos, so I'm leaving that out. So it's just the salt and the pepper on this one. You could probably add a little cumin, or if you had some fresh cilantro or something like that, but I'm just sticking with this and just sprinkling a little bit of cheese on top. Okay, so this one will be ready to go. And for the last one is just ham and Swiss. So I feel like I have cheese and chilies and everything all over me. So again, we'll do the 3 eggs. Anyway, I was trying to mix it, and this one egg yolk just would not break up. So I thought, you know, it might be easier just to mix them without all that extra half and half in there. And sure enough, that mixed up easily. Okay, so now I'm gonna pour this in till I get 1.5 cups. That one is done. Give it a mix. And we'll just do a pinch of salt, so half a teaspoon, some pepper. I'm also not going to add nutmeg to this. I'm just going to change it up. Now here is a cup of finely diced ham. I just got a ham steak in the meat section of my grocery store, and I just chopped it really, really fine. So I'm going to put that on the bottom. You could put this all in your mixture and then pour it in if you want. But I kind of like this because I know that I have an even layer throughout the bottom of the crust. And then here is Swiss cheese. All of the measurements for all of the ingredients will be listed in the description box. So you can go through and see exactly what I used. Okay, and then pour our mixture over this. You see when I pour, it kind of all stays in one area, so I'm not going to have one area that's heavier with ham than the other. And then just another little sprinkle of cheese on top. So the ones that I just cooked, I had to put those little pie shields around because as you could see, the crusts are kind of really toasty already. So let me show you how I did that. It's going to be better. It was kind of hard actually to do it while it was in the oven and it was partially baked. So I'm going to do it just right off the bat. If you don't have these, you can just use foil. I'm just going to do this while they're nice and cool. And get it around here to protect that crust from over browning. Okay, so there's one. And we'll do this one. I actually kind of wish these had some way to clamp together and secure. So you could keep it on there pretty tight. Or maybe I'm just using it wrong. If I'm using it wrong and you know, please put it in the comments and let me know what I'm doing wrong. I'm just gonna put these two where these two ends are together to kind of hold them in place. All right, this is going to go in the oven for 35 minutes, and when we come back, we'll have 4 quiches already baked and ready to try. So here we have 4 quiches. They're all done. Here we have the Quiche Lorraine. This one's the broccoli cheese. This one's the chili relleno one, and here is the ham and Swiss. So before we jump into how to gift these, let's talk about freezing. So once your quiche is fully baked and cooled, you'll want to wrap it tightly in plastic wrap and then again in foil, or if it fits, you could slip the whole thing in a big Ziploc freezer bag. And double wrapping it helps prevent freezer burn, and you really want to make sure that your quiche is cooled thoroughly because you don't want any condensation in any of the wrappings because that will form crystals. So you want to make sure to avoid that. Now, as far as gifting these, I don't know if you've heard about Meal Train or you've ever been asked to take a meal to somebody that has maybe lost a loved one or had a baby. But these are actually perfect because you could bake them and freeze them ahead of time, maybe have 1 or 2 ready to go in the freezer. And then when that situation comes up, you can pull one out. You could put like a nice little spring salad with a vinaigrette, some cookies, and a little note to say that you're thinking about them. And what makes it nice too is the dish is disposable. So now you don't have to worry about getting your pie plate back from anybody. So anyway, let's cut into this and see what it tastes like. I think I'm going to cut into the Quiche Lorraine because this is the most traditional one. The other ones I'm going to freeze because there's no way my husband and I can eat all 4 of these by the time, before they go bad. So let's cut into the Quiche Lorraine. The crust feels crispy. Make sure to get through it. And hopefully we can get a good slice. We were in Amish country a couple years ago, and the ladies in the pie shop there were just cutting and bringing out the most beautiful slices of pie. And I was thinking, I never have luck like that. Well, let's see if we have luck today. Probably not, because the crust is a little stuck here to the side. I just jinxed myself, right? I totally jinxed myself. And I don't get another take on this, so you guys are along for the real ride here. It's just getting that first piece out. Okay, there it is. Hey, the bottom is flaky. That's what we wanted. I mean, my pie crust around the top, that's another thing. But let's look at the bottom and see. We have a pie crust that is fully cooked through. And let's give it a taste. Again, Quiche Lorraine, it has the bacon and the Gruyère cheese in it. It's good. You can taste the Gruyère. The bacon is nice and salty. The crust is not soggy, which I'm happy about. And I'm sure these other slices will come out so much better once I start cutting. It's just that first one is always tough. I hope you guys give these a try. If you're good at making pie crust, go ahead and make your own. The secret to this whole thing is really that all-purpose mixture with the 3 eggs, the half and half to get you up to 1.5 cups. That is the blend, I think, that makes this just so easy to do. And then just be imaginative with your toppings. If you like this type of content, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe for more content. And that is it for today. I will be back next week with another home style dish from my kitchen.